Hey, Top G is here. In this channel I will show you the best Manhwa Recap content you will ever find in any other YouTube channel. So, spend your time in this quality content, and don't go anywhere. I have a surprise for you in the end.
As a raider, you are tasked with hunting shadow creatures, collecting treasures, and protecting others. It's a dangerous profession, but one that inspires people and makes them heroes. And targets. Did you know that a raider's heart races just before they die? One day in a cafe, a man was angry because he was told to be a living shield. He was Jae Hyun. A person wearing glasses gave an explanation not to misunderstand because it was the work left. That person named Jong Woo-min works at the Raiders agency and acts as a job provider for raiders who are not part of any guild. So when Jae Hyun was contacted by Jong Woo-min, he thought there was a job he could do after a long time, but when he heard Woo-min's request, it was a dangerous thing to make him a living shield to the front line in a dungeon filled with undead monsters. Of course, it was not that Jong Woo-min did not understand where Jae Hyun came from, but there was no other way. Jae Hyun is a mid-level D-rank raider and warrior among the awakened. Although being a warrior does not necessarily imply weakness, the magician class raider has become more in demand lately due to their ability to safely hunt monsters from afar. In large-scale battles, the warrior who charges ahead is more likely to sustain numerous injuries, whereas the magician has a clear advantage. It is a bitter reality, but one that Jae Hyun has come to accept. Jae Hyun understood that 11 years ago, when Jae Hyun was in the third year of middle school, he got a good score on the Awakener aptitude test, so he was accepted into Miller's Academy with an educational facility that specialized in raider training. His magic aptitude at that time was 97%, while Soina, who is currently the greatest magician, only has an aptitude score of 92%. In conclusion, Jae Hyun's aptitude score at that time could be said to have surpassed the whole world. On the other hand, Jae Hyun only had a 34% combat aptitude score, but in the end, he chose Raider with combat class. Not that he had a big reason to choose it, because at that time the reputation of magician was very bad. They were used as a tool to provide buffs because magicians could not defeat monsters without the assistance of a combatant. But now, combat users were underestimated while magic users were glorified. Jae Hyun wondered if he had chosen to become a magician in the past if his life was better than it was now. Generally, a raider would stop developing after 20 years old. Jae Hyun knew from the start that he had no choice. If he wanted to survive in his situation, he couldn't do it by avoiding rough work. In that silence, Jae Hyun said he would do the job. Jong Woo-min was happy to hear that answer and told Jae Hyun to come to the site tomorrow morning at 8 to meet him. The next day, Jong Woo-min was not seen at the entrance of the dungeon. The time passed quickly from the 8 o'clock he promised to meet Jong Woo-min and was nearing 9 o'clock. Jae Hyun walked alone at the entrance of the dungeon, and thought Jong Woo-min would be better off teaming up with a raider who was better than him considering he was only a rank D raider class warrior, while Woo-min was a rank A magician. Then a familiar voice came from behind Jae Hyun who was deep in thought. The familiar face of a middle-aged man appeared in front of Jae Hyun. That person was Lee Myung-ho. Jae Hyun had met him several times in the dungeon as a scout because he was a combatant. Soon one of the guild members gave an announcement to gather at the entrance of the dungeon and gave instructions to enter it within 30 minutes. The announcement from the guild members made Lee Myung-ho and Jae Hyun lose their spirits. Inside the screen of the old smartphone, there was a photo of the young version of Jae Hyun and his mother who said that he would return safely. Then Jae Hyun and the other raider began to enter the dungeon. It was seen that the dungeon was a place like a ruin with green fire torches attached to the walls of the ruins. The undead began to appear and attack the raider, then the magician told the warrior to raise the shield properly and maintain the position. The magician guild guarded by Jae Hyun did not stop berating because it was a reconnaissance mission that risked their lives, and the magicians were also very nervous. While the warriors tirelessly maintained their positions at the battlefront, repelling the continuous assault of the monsters, the magician was engrossed in their intricate spellcasting. With steadfast focus, they aimed and unleashed a series of spells, drawing upon their magical prowess. The spectacle reached its peak when the magician invoked the fearsome Certifier magic, giving rise to a meteoric force that soared across the sky. This fiery entity struck the undead monsters with a devastating blow, incinerating them to ashes in the blink of an eye. Originating from the renowned Meteor Guild, a faction gaining prominence for their adeptness in magic, the magician was a force to be reckoned with. Observing this, Jae Hyun couldn't help but feel a newfound sense of security, realizing that with such potent spell magic at their disposal, the threat of death seemed significantly diminished. As they took a moment to rest and regain their strength, the group prepared themselves for the impending encounter with the boss that lay hidden within the inner sanctum of the dungeon. Jae Hyun held his breath as he sat on the rock. When he wanted to check the items from the monster drop, the interface of the Windows system seemed to be broken and all of Jae Hyun's power suddenly disappeared and he became unsteady. Then there was a notification in his status window saying that the easier system had gone down, and the connection with the user would temporarily be cut. Jae-hyun is experiencing problems with his easier system and is feeling confused and anxious. He attempted to follow the light and sound cues from his system window, but it was evident that something had gone wrong. According to the error message displayed on the window, an unknown entity had infiltrated the easier system, causing the safe mode repairs to fail. Jae-hyun is now left with unanswered questions about what exactly happened. Jae-hyun assumed that the problematic easier system was related to the voice he heard earlier. Immediately Jae-hyun looked around and sure enough lights with greenish-white rays were scattered. Jae-hyun wondered if the light wanted him to follow it, and it seemed that other people couldn't see the light. He made up his mind to check it out to find out what was going on. Jae-hyun followed the light while trying many times to open the status window, but it did not work. Since Jae-hyun was 10 years old and awakened, of course, he had never seen the system crash and reboot like this, even if it was for the past 17 years. The voice Jae-hyun heard most likely had something to do with the invasion of the unknown presence and the system crash. Jae-hyun thought that the easier system might have been undergoing major changes. It was explained that the easier system was a type of living system based on mythology. The term Aesir refers to the Norse gods of Asgard including Odin and Thor. It is said to be the origin of this system, which is the last stronghold of hope for humans at the end of despair. 20 years ago, in 2011, which is called the Year of Disaster, a huge tree of uncountable height grew in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The tree had grown overnight and covered the sky in 9 days. The actual name of this tree, which is said to be a sign of the end of the world by some and a blessing by others, is Yggdrasil. It is the world tree that appears in mythology. On the 9th day, when the tree finished growing, a tragedy began. All over the world, unprecedented disasters were caused by monsters. Monsters from mythology such as giants and dragons appeared, and it took a long time before people realized that all these things had become reality. Half of the population lost their lives and the other half died from disease and plague. While everyone was drowning in despair, a little hope emerged for humanity. Those humans known as awakeners with divine powers appeared. They awakened holding the power of the gods. This means that they started killing monsters based on the easier system. When Jae-hyun walked far enough, his steps stopped at a large gate. Most raiders called it the treasure gate. It was a secret room with treasures hidden inside and at the same time had a low probability of appearing even in high-level dungeons. Usually, there are special items and rare items that are estimated to cost at least hundreds of millions of won. While opening the gate, Jae-hyun thought that if he got at least A-rank equipment, he could change his life. While inside the treasure gate, the pillars with towering height were shown, and in the middle of it was a secret treasure. Jae-hyun approached the place. The treasure looked like a small ball the same size as a golf ball, and when he wanted to touch the item a very bright light suddenly appeared, and instantly a status window notification appeared. The notification provided information that the damaged features of the system had been successfully restored and Jae-hyun got new equipment. The equipment was Odin's lost eye, which was covered in golden light around it. The item was the eye of the strongest god in the Aesir, Odin, sacrificed for the sake of knowledge at the Well of Mimi. Upon donning the item, the wearer gains the ability to master rune writing and the skill to counteract magic, either by neutralizing or annihilating it. Astonishingly, this item can only be utilized once, yet holds the prestigious mythic rank. Being an S-rank item, its value is astronomical, exceeding hundreds of millions of won on the market. Its uniqueness is underscored by the fact that, presently, it is the sole item of its kind in existence globally. It was a super rare item. Jae-hyun planned to try to use the item once and sell it, but unfortunately, it was not possible because Odin's lost eye is an item that will stay with the user once used. Jae-hyun decided to sell the item for his survival and left the treasure gate. Not long after, Jae-hyun returned to the other raider groups and it seemed that he was late and apologized. Soon afterward, the guild members announced to start the raid again. Then there was an explosion on the upper side of the ruins. Jae-hyun managed to avoid the falling rocks caused by the explosion and bounced a few meters instantly. A purple mist spread across the ruins and it took Jae-hyun by surprise. Guild members who inhaled the haze were seen coughing and bleeding from their eyes. It was a poisonous gas and if you breathed in too much you would die. Knowing that Jae-hyun rushed to get out of the poisonous gas, Myung-ho who approached Jae-hyun asked him to leave there because it was very dangerous. When they wanted to leave the place, a sword pierced through Myung-ho's chest. Jae-hyun was shocked by speechlessness and decided to save himself. He ran away and tried to calm down. He believed the sudden sound of explosions, the poisonous gas spreading in the dungeon, and people being instantly killed were not impossible for monsters to do, but the dungeon assassin was the one doing it. Assumptions and hypotheses filled Jae-hyun's head. He did not understand why something like this could happen. He muttered that now was not the right time to think about it. A sudden attack passed through Jae-hyun's shoulder and lodged in the back wall. The person who tried to attack Jae-hyun was his friend, Jong Woo-min. While emitting an electric aura around him, Woo-min said that he had kept his promise that today he would meet Jae-hyun. Jong Woo-min had a smile on his face as he slowly walked toward Jae-hyun. At a glance, one could see that he had a different aura from yesterday. The black hoodies and square glasses gave the impression of an unknown danger. Jae-hyun did not take his eyes off Woo Min. When he asked in a sharp voice whether he was behind all the chaos that happened in this dungeon, Jung Woo Min confessed in a soft tone, and there was no sign of guilt in his expression. Jung Woo Min explained that it was a request from the clients. After all, so many people disliked the Meteor Guild. They looked down on other guilds too much, and it was not strange that everyone was hostile towards it. Dungeon Assassin was a nickname that referred to those who exploited closed dungeons and committed assassinations within them. Based on the incident, the sneak ambush of the Meteor Guild this time was carried out in such a blind spot. Jae-hyun gritted his teeth as he stared at Jung Woo Min in front of him. Blue mana emitted from his entire body. He was not someone Jae-hyun could defeat with his current skills. Jung Woo Min was an A-rank magician. He was part of the geniuses who were in the top 2% in Korea. On the other hand, Jae-hyun was only D-rank. He wasn't very skillful, nor was he weak, he was just average. Furthermore, Jae-hyun could not use the power of the easier system. It was unfair to Jae-hyun, but there was no other way. Of course, in his heart, he wanted to avenge those who had fought alongside him on the defense line. Especially Myung-ho. But realistically, Jae-hyun could do nothing. As Yggdrasil sprouted and the Awakener appeared, the world was tragically intolerant of the weak. And Jae-hyun was at the lowest level of that pyramid. Jae-hyun wanted to make a deal with Woo Min that he would act like nothing happened. But just as Jae-hyun hadn't finished his words, a yellow lightning strike that extended from Woo Min's arm shortened the distance between them in an instant. Jae-hyun dodged the sharp lightning strike by jumping to the side. His arm and cheek began to bleed where the strike passed through. If he had reacted just a little too late, he would have been dead. Jung Woo Min's attack happened in an instant. An attack filled with obvious hostility. It was too strong to say he was joking. Seeing Jae-hyun's stiff face, Jung Woo Min smiled coldly and said that the target of today's dungeon was not just the Meteor Guild. Bang! Bang! Lightning chains flew out quickly. A magician like Woo Min above rank B could cast magic without saying the spell out loud. Staring at his bleeding self, Jae-hyun bit his lip on how to get out of the current situation. Woo Min's attacks came at Jae-hyun without a break. As he dodged the attacks with difficulty, Jae-hyun thought about who assigned him to kill him. Only one person came to Jae-hyun's mind. His entire body trembled, and his face changed in an instant. Jung Woo Min saw Jae-hyun's facial expression with interest and stopped attacking. Jae-hyun's gaze sharpened and asked Woo Min if it was his father who told Woo Min to kill him. Seeing Jae-hyun's frowning expression that he had not seen before, Woo Min laughed happily and said that he was very smart. Jae-hyun was very upset to hear that and wondered if it was too much to kill his son by contracting an assassin. With a blank stare, Jae-hyun asked once again, did his father also ask Woo Min to kill his mother 5 years ago? Women didn't expect that what Jae-hyun said was the truth. Now Jae-hyun knew clearly and knew to direct that hatred towards Jung Woo Min and his dad. Now he couldn't trust anyone. Jung Woo Min slowly stepped on Jae-hyun's pride with an unchanging cold expression. When Jae-hyun's body finally stiffened and stopped moving, Jung Woo Min withdrew his magic. Instantly Odin's lost eye appeared through the interface status window, and the overflowing magic power felt so claustrophobic that the ground trembled and began to break. Woo Min suddenly furrowed his brows. Magic power was felt around Jae-hyun's body. Jung Woo Min immediately got goosebumps all over his body. The magic was becoming stronger by the second. Jung Woo Min quickly took a fighting stance and took out his lightning chain. Just as he thought, mana flowed from Jae-hyun's body that glowed with white light, life energy wrapped around his dying body. This time, instead of casting silently, he cast the spell loudly. He planned to end Jae-hyun's life in one more powerful attack. Woo Min quickly finished casting and launched an attack on Jae-hyun. However, Jae-hyun did not dodge the attack this time either. He stared blankly at the attacks rushing towards him. When the lightning chain arrived before Jae-hyun, his left eye instantly gave off a golden light with a strong aura. At the same time, Woo Min's attack was cancelled and destroyed. Then a notification appeared from Jae-hyun's status window telling him that the item Odin's Lost Eye had been installed. The item had been bound to the user. It was clear that Jae-hyun's left eye was not like a normal human eye. Then a status window notification appeared that there was a blank card that could be used. Jung Woo Min's expression intensified. He shouted, he could not understand what was happening before his eyes, that his magic was destroyed and scattered into the sand. Jae-hyun stepped out, and with the effect of Odin's Lost Eye activated, he used the blank card. With a horrified expression, Jae-hyun said that he would kill Woo Min in the most painful way possible. A status window appeared telling him that he was copying the active skill, Lightning Chain. Sure enough, in the blink of an eye, Jae-hyun activated the same lightning chain magic used by Woo-min. Woo-min was surprised by the sudden turn of events. He had honed his skills in magic over the years, perfecting his ability to wield it in combat. His gaze narrowed as he fixed his attention on Jae-hyun, who stood before him. Without warning, a lightning chain, charged with an immense amount of magical power, hurtled towards Woo-min at an astonishing velocity, far greater than the attack he had just unleashed moments earlier. Jae-hyun's attacks fell without stopping. Woo-min used his magic to deflect the attack, but Jae-hyun's attack was extremely fast. Then, for lightning chain magic headed towards Woo-min, he managed to dodge 3 of the attacks with great effort. But there was still 1 attack left. Jong Woo-min quickly gathered mana and created a magic shield against the attack. With Odin's Eye, Jae-hyun activated the Universal Derivation skill, which made all kinds of magic cancelable. Woo-min's magic shield was also unable to deal with the skill and was then destroyed. He could not avoid Jae-hyun's final lightning chain attack. The attack hit him heavily. Jae-hyun approached Woo-min. Sure enough, the attack was strong enough to make a rank A magician fall helplessly. With hatred raging, Jae-hyun mercilessly landed the final blow while killing Woo-min. They both fell to the ground. Woo-min died from the powerful magic, while Jae-hyun already lacked stamina and magic power. As Jae-hyun was nearing his death, a status window appeared and informed that a new operating system had been downloaded and asked Jae-hyun if he wanted to run it. The system informed that when this new operating system is run, time will be turned back to the time that the user wants. With his remaining strength, Jae-hyun just surrendered and accepted to run it. Suddenly, a status window appeared with information that the new operating, Norni system, had been run. Then Jae-hyun vaguely saw 3 women wearing white dresses. The 3 women spoke in an incomprehensible rune language, and the blonde woman with a blindfold over her eyes stretched out her hand, as she intended to help Jae-hyun. A red status window appeared saying that from now on Jae-hyun was the challenger of the Supreme and Majestic Easier. The passive skill, One Watched by the Gods, and the skill, Absolute Eye of God, have been obtained. And the gods who opposed Easier were watching Jae-hyun. The moment he stopped feeling the tightness in his chest, Jae-hyun opened his eyes, and he fell into deep confusion. He sat up and looked around the bed he had been lying on. He realized that he was in the old house that he used to live in. When he looked at his hands, a red light emitted and told him that time had been successfully turned back to the time that the user wanted. It wasn't a dream when Jae-hyun realized that his mother was still alive, and suddenly he ran towards his mother, holding his mother tightly while water dripped from his eyes. The Norni system returned to Jae-hyun on November 15, 2020. It seemed that the restriction for non-combat activities had been removed, and Jae-hyun's body had been successfully restored to 20%. Not too long after that, a new quest, Rest is the Mother of Success, was automatically created. The quest told Jae-hyun to restore his life to 80% with a blank card as a reward. Jae-hyun sighed and recalled that in fact, he did not die when fighting Woo-min. It was probably because of Nornia's new system. He was already familiar with the appearance of Yggdrasil and monsters. It was not the first time Jae-hyun had experienced such strange things, and what he had learned when facing such situations was to adapt and evaluate the situation as soon as possible. If the information conveyed by the system was correct, Jae-hyun was currently in the 3rd year of middle school. The biggest change now is that the system that works is not the easier system, but the Norni system, which he hasn't fully understood yet. Jae-hyun was very excited as he looked at the calendar on his desk. There, the date November 16th was circled, and a small reminder was written. Jae-hyun's lips lifted in a smile. He erased the note and undid his intention to become a combat class. It was a precious opportunity for him, and he would not make the same mistake a second time. At this chance of life, Jae-hyun made up his mind to become a magician. A moment later, dinner time had come. Seeing his mother sitting in front of him, Jae-hyun almost cried in disbelief. He kept stuffing rice into his mouth to hide the tears that kept trying to fall. He glanced at his mother, who had sacrificed her youth for him. Jae-hyun's mother, Lee Sunhwa, looked at her son worriedly and wondered if something was bothering Jae-hyun lately, considering he hugged her while crying just moments ago. Then Jae-hyun put down his chopsticks, and after thinking for a moment, he began to speak. He wanted to tell his mom a few things. Lee Sunhwa was thinking carefully about what was making her son depressed. She thought that it was fear of enrolling in Miller's Academy because Radar was a very dangerous job. But Son was thinking was wrong. Jae-hyun told his mother that he was thinking of changing his application to the magician class. The words that came out of Jae-hyun's mouth were completely unexpected and stunned his mother. Lee Sunhwa thought for a moment and placed her hand on her son's head while asking him if his decision was not sudden or not. Jae-hyun gently replied that his decision was something he had thought about for a long time. A smile appeared on Lee Sunhwa's face and told Jae-hyun to do as he wished. Soa wanted her son to do whatever he wanted, be it magic or something else. If that's his decision, Soa will support her beloved son. Jae-hyun was touched and cried when the words came from his mother's lips. It was a heartwarming situation, but Jae-hyun did not forget his goal, which was revenge against his father, who was a Class A raider named Minute Song-oh. He had to be strong for that. Jae-hyun was seen exercising to restore his physique. The quest, Rest is the Mother of Success, was completed and he got a blank card as a reward. Although he was not sure what the Nani system was, it was a beneficial situation for him, besides that he also knew the future. His memories were good enough for him to be a guide in the dungeon. Even with all that, Jae-hyun could not eliminate one concern, which was skill. He only had the skills of Universal Derivation and Lightning Chain, which was not enough for his huge ambition. Jae-hyun leaned back in his chair while thinking hard for a moment as he looked at the open status window. He saw that his level and status had been reset, but his passive skills were still there. One of the passive skills was called One Watched by the God, which made the user have fast growth. The second passive skill is Absolute Eye, which allows users to break through false illusions and see absolute reality. Looking at the unused status points, because Jae-hyun wants to become a magician, he believes he needs dexterity status to be able to dodge attacks. Magic status was a must for magician, but the most important one was endurance. Endurance is not a stat that increases attack power like strength or magic, but slows down the process of fatigue when doing the same thing repeatedly. Then Jae-hyun added 2 points to dexterity, 5 points to magic, and the rest to endurance. Jae-hyun looked at the blank card that he had taken out of his inventory and thought hard to choose what skill he wanted to learn. He didn't need an attack skill because he already had Lightning Chain. Jae-hyun spoke while turning the blank card. He wanted to learn the healing skill. In 2020, magicians were treated like trash compared to warriors. But it was different if magician who knew healing spells, they would be treated like noblemen. Jae-hyun sighed as he fell into deep contemplation. Instantly Jae-hyun's smartphone rang. He grabbed his vibrating phone and looked at the screen. The sender was Kim Yoo-jung. She was Jae-hyun's childhood friend as well as his best friend who dreamed of studying at Miller's Academy with him. But it ended tragically when Kim Yoo-jung died in the past. Jae-hyun didn't want it to happen again and focused on the challenges ahead of him. When he read the message from Kim Yoo-jung, the woman invited Jae-hyun to attend the seminar held by Saintess Yo-sun Jaeon. Seeing his best friend's invitation, Jae-hyun's mind and memory became clear. He remembered that Saintess Yo-sun Jaeon was a magician who specialized in healing spells, and the magic that represented her was sacrifice. Suddenly Jae-hyun quickly stood up from his seat and prepared to go to where the Saintess was. After he got permission from his mother, Jae-hyun left the house and quickly sent a reply to Kim Yoo-jung that he would be there soon. Glimmering into Jae-hyun's eyes, he thought about copying the healing spell of Korea's best healer, Yo-sun Jaeon, Sacrifice. A black van drove down the street. The voice of Yo-sun Jaeon's secretary and manager, Park Sung-jae, could be heard from the driver's seat. The manager was explaining Saintess' schedule for today, starting from the Raider Motivation Seminar in the city center. After that, there was the Rank B dungeon raid in the Songbuk district. Park Sung-jae inspected the base station in Wonju Field before rushing to America. While reporting his busy schedule, he noticed the pale Saintess sitting in the back and asked if she was okay, concerned about her worsening condition. The Saintess was aware that the spell named Sacrifice would consume her life force, as the name implied. Worried about the Saintess' condition, Park Sung-jae hopes that there is one person who has a healing spell whose level is equivalent to Sacrifice. Only that way can heal the Saintess, because if the situation continues like that, the Korean Saintess may collapse soon. The scene changed in the middle of the city. Kim Yoo-jung was seen dragging Jae-hyun to immediately attend the seminar that was about to start. They sat in the middle of the square where the seminar was held. There were banners placed around it like the encouragement seminar by Guildmaster Lotus, Yo-sun Jaeon. A banner that read, "Saving the World and Society with Healing Magic," was displayed there. People who attended were very interested because Saintess Yo-sun Jaeon was a top-grade healer. But everyone did not realize that 2 months from now, Saintess Sun Jaeon would be in a state of crisis during the middle of the raid dungeon in Itaewon due to the penalty of her healing skill. Shortly after, the Saintess spoke at the seminar, energetically giving courage to the raider candidates and pleading with them to become raiders and save the world. Of course, everyone was both excited and moved by the Saintess' speech. After the Saintess' speech was over, Jae-hyun and Kim Yoo-jung took a walk around the city. Jae-hyun told his best friend that he would change his class to magician and asked Kim Yoo-jung to teach him the basics of magic. Jae-hyun said he had some business and left Yoo-jung in the middle of the city. Jae-hyun walked and looked for something, then he found the car that Saintess was in and saw her manager. He approached the manager of Saintess who was on the phone and asked permission to meet Saintess Yo-sun Jaeon. Of course, Park Sung-jae as the manager refused the request because he thought Jae-hyun was a crazy fanatic. Jae-hyun said that he asked to meet the guildmaster not to ask for an autograph or anything like that, but to cure Yo-sun Jaeon's illness. Park Sung-jae was furious at Jae-hyun's words because it was very secret information, and asked where he got his information from in a high tone. Just then, a woman who was resting in the van revealed herself and interrupted them. A woman with black hair, pale skin, slender fingers, and dark green eyes. Yosun Jaehyun asked while opening the glass of the van, was what he'd said true? Confidently, Jae Hyun answered yes, he could cure her illness. Yosun Jaehyun thought for a moment, then she asked Park Sung-jae how much time was left before the next schedule. The manager said there were 2 hours before the next appointment. Yosun Jaehyun smiled slightly and invited him to get into the van to go somewhere private since there were too many eyes on them. Moments later, they arrived inside the Yeonhwa Guild, which was Master Yosun Jaehyun's private office. The Saintess looked at Jae Hyun with distrust as she did not know his skills. Then, Jae Hyun crossed his arms and said his plan honestly to copy Yosun Jaehyun's sacrifice skill and heal him. Of course, Yosun Jaehyun was shocked listening to what Jae Hyun said. Park Sung-jae, who was restraining himself, could not hold back his anger anymore and hit the table. He said that the skill was the guildmaster's unique skill. Everyone in the guild had tried to copy the skill, but no one had succeeded. In that case, how could an inexperienced boy imitate it? Sung-ji's words were not wrong. Unique skills were skills that could not be copied. Other normal skill formulas exist and can be memorized, but unique skill has no such formula. So unique skill ends up being monopolized by one person or family. Jae Hyun tried to calm them down. If he couldn't do it, he wouldn't have come this far in the first place. So what Jae Hyun suggested was that after he copied Sacrifice's healing skill, he would use it to heal Yosun Jaehyun. With Jae Hyun's confidence, Yosun Jaehyun laughed softly with his arms crossed and said, "Then, prove it." Saintess concentrated on mana and started casting the spell, Sacrifice. The quickening power of life radiated. Shining with a peaceful light, golden effects began to flow. Jae Hyun smiled as he took out the blank card that he kept. The blank card began to glow with white light, successfully copying the Sacrifice skill and registering it. Because it was likely that Park Sung-jae and Yosun Jaehyun did not believe that he had successfully copied a unique skill, Jae Hyun demonstrated the Sacrifice skill that he had mastered perfectly. Yosun Jaehyun and Park Sung-jae looked at each other at the same time with shock on their faces. Jae Hyun then suddenly stopped his healing skill midway and spoke that he wanted to negotiate. Then he read the description of the Sacrifice skill, which could heal multiple allies at once and remove debuffs. And if the skill was used on an undead monster, it would turn into an attack skill, Judgment of Light. What was surprising was that the penalty of the skill was removed because it was a skill copied using a blank card. Yosun Jaehyun smiled at Jae Hyun and asked what he wanted from Guild Lotus. Jae Hyun to the point asked to be his sponsor. Jae Hyun had big dreams now, but to grow, he needed money, friends, and even social connections. He wanted Yeonhwa Guild to lend him support. Yosun Jaehyun thought for a moment and said that he would invest in Jae Hyun, but there was a condition. Because if he asks for Sun Jaehyun's support, it's not just him but the entire guild. If Jae Hyun asked for Lotus Guild's support, then he would have to join Lotus Guild, and immediately the guildmaster Yosun Jaehyun invited him to join the guild in the future. Yosun Jaehyun explained why he recruited Jae Hyun despite his unproven abilities. First, Jae Hyun knew the information about Guildmaster Yoa's illness. Even though it was secret information with a handful of people who knew. That meant Jae Hyun had a very high ability to obtain information. Secondly, Jae Hyun managed to copy the Sacrifice skill perfectly. He hadn't heard of anyone being able to copy the unique skill and saw that his abilities were probably limitless. Thirdly, Yosun Jaehyun leaned forward slightly as she closed the distance between him and Jae Hyun and said that Jae Hyun did not show the slightest nervousness in front of Guildmaster Lotus. Yosun Jaehyun planned to recruit Jae Hyun using the right of priority negotiation. It was a guild thing to support the growth of young raider candidates with the promise of the guild getting priority in the contract signing once the raider candidate became an adult. Normally, that opportunity was only available to geniuses. It was a good opportunity for Jae Hyun, but he did not feel the need to decide immediately. He decided to heal Yosun Jaehyun first instead of accepting the offer. Jae Hyun stood behind Yosun Jaehyun and started healing her. Jae Hyun then activated the active skill Sacrifice. The man from the Sacrifice healing skill glowed a beautiful golden color. The healing magic wave left Jae Hyun's body and slowly moved into Yosun Jaehyun's body. The healing continued for several minutes. A moment later Jae Hyun made a satisfied face that he successfully cured the intended person's illness and the passive skill, First Aid Arts, had increased to level 19. He nodded at Yosun Jaehyun and said that everything was done and told him to move a little. Hearing Jae Hyun's words, Yosun Jaehyun stood up, swinging his arms and stomping his feet to check his health. A few minutes later, with overflowing excitement, Yosun Jaehyun spoke through tears that all his symptoms disappeared and thanked him. Jae Hyun, without realizing it, increased his value. Yosun Jaehyun gave her his business card and said that she would try her best to fulfill his request. Sun Jian told Jae-hyun to call her whenever he wanted and asked him to look at the contract they had talked about. Hearing those words, Jae-hyun paused, scratched his head, and opened his mouth with difficulty. Jae-hyun had something he wanted to ask for immediately. The next day, Jae-hyun got out of the black van and arrived in front of a low-rank dungeon under the ownership of Lotus Guild. Jae-hyun looked at the dungeon gate seriously and thought that to survive in Miller's Academy he had to level up immediately. The guildmaster was seen opening a document in his private office, and a woman named Park Hana gave Jae-hyun's profile to guildmaster Yo-sun Jian. She read intensely as she turned the page. Yo-sun Jian's hand stopped. She was surprised that Jae-hyun wanted to be in warrior class but could use magic amazingly. Continuing to read the profile, Yo-sun Jian stopped his hand with lips that began to tremble. There, the information that she still couldn't believe was written that minute Jae-hyun had a magic aptitude of 97%. A moment later, Yo-sun Jian with a trembling voice gave orders to Park Sung-jae to tell Jae-hyun to meet him immediately after he got out of the dungeon. The scene changed to minute Jae-hyun, who seemed to be about to enter the dungeon. There were some recovery items and equipment lent by the Manhwa Guild, so Jae-hyun could use them first. While Jae-hyun was saying thank you, Park Sung-jae reached into his pocket that he had something to give him. From his chest pocket, he took out a stone that glowed with blue light. It was a warp stone, which when broken inside the dungeon, the user would be brought back to the entrance of the dungeon. Park Sung-jae gave it to Jae-hyun as an apology for his harsh treatment as well as a gratitude for healing the guildmaster. The blue gate that looked like the entrance of the dungeon released a bit of magic. Jae-hyun lightly placed his hand on it to confirm the rank of the dungeon. The dungeon was E rank, and Jae-hyun thought that he was fine to enter alone. Before entering the dungeon, Park Sung-jae said to use the warp stone in case something dangerous happened. Jae-hyun nodded and said to come back soon. After Jae-hyun gave a slight greeting, he stepped into the dungeon. And in the next moment, Jae-hyun fell into a situation that he did not expect at all. There was a notification that Jae-hyun had entered the dungeon, and due to the Norni system, the user was moved to a certain area. That area was in Helheim, the field of the dead. Jae-hyun was seen bouncing after passing through the dungeon portal. After a prolonged use of the warp portal, Jae-hyun was struck with intense vertigo. With great effort, he managed to soothe his queasy stomach while taking in the details of his new environment. Just as the system had indicated, he found himself in the field of the dead. The vast expanse was dominated by rows upon rows of graves, situating him at the heart of an enormous cemetery. Just a short while before, he had been transported to this eerie locale, Helheim, courtesy of the Norni system. Helheim is one of the 9 worlds in Norse mythology. It is the world of the dead ruled by Loki's daughter Hel. The dungeon is modeled by 7 worlds in Norse mythology, except Midgard and Asgard. The 7 worlds are the world of fog, frost and Niflheim, world of flames, Muspelheim, world of giants, Jotunheim, world of elves, Alfheim, world of dark elves, Svartalfheim, world of Vana gods, Vanaheim. And located in the coldest and deepest part of Niflheim was another world, Helheim. Jae-hyun frowned and wondered why the E-rank dungeon changed and brought him to Helheim. Normally, Helheim was one of the most difficult dungeons for beginners. The fear of facing an enemy that could rise again after killing him is because the undead without holy magic is difficult to deal with. The situation was not good, but Jae-hyun calmed himself that this situation was good for testing his new skill, Sacrifice. Because that skill can turn into an attack skill when facing the undead called Light's Judgment. If he used Light's Judgment, it should be enough to take care of the weak undead. Suddenly a sharp arrow shot out from somewhere. Realizing it a little too late, Jae-hyun used a movement to turn his body and dodge the arrow, but it still hit Jae-hyun's cheek, causing it to bleed. It seemed that there was paralyzing poison on the tip of the arrow. But it didn't matter to Jae-hyun. He used the Sacrifice skill to heal himself. It was then that the enemy entered Jae-hyun's line of sight. There was a ghost holding a sharp scythe glaring at him, a skeletal warrior holding a bow, and even a Draga. Draga was an undead creature from Norse mythology that rose from its grave. The undead seemed more organized than the rest of the party, and he had to defeat them alone. Luckily, he had his staff item with him. Jae-hyun lightly poured mana into the wand he was holding and performed magic. The magic wand filled with mana began to release magic slowly. With the powerful impact of the magic performed, Jae-hyun quickly shot the lightning chain toward the enemy. Wraith, the leader of the group of undead, was hit by Jae-hyun's lightning chain attack and killed him. Jae-hyun gained 70 experience points. After that, 2 ghosts attacked him one by one. Jae-hyun took a leap and closed the distance between him and the enemy. He turned his body lightly to avoid the scythe. Then he repelled the 2 ghosts by moving the lightning chain towards the ghosts and managed to kill 2 ghosts at once, and get 140 experience points. But Jae-hyun didn't stop there. He flew towards the undead at the back who were shooting arrows. Using the momentum of his body, Jae-hyun put all his power into the staff as he hit the undead's head. He managed to kill the undead, but unfortunately, the staff aimed at the undead's head cracked and broke. With the broken staff, Jae Hyun recalled that during the time he faced the undead, he used the staff as a weapon like a warrior fights. However, he did not know how a magician fought. Jae Hyun had no time to think as he had to quickly block an attack as Drager swung the sword at him. Jae Hyun had already made his decision. He raised his hand and instantly the sacrifice skill activated. A golden yellow light appeared in the cloud gap, the sacrifice skill turned into an attack skill. Then the judgment of light skill was activated. The light from the cloud gap rushed toward Drager and Wraith and killed them quickly like burning. Jae Hyun successfully killed the undead and gained many experience points so that his level increased by 1 level. Jae Hyun exhaled loudly as he sat down with a thud. Fortunately, the vitality and mana consumed were restored by leveling up. After finishing resting, Jae Hyun slowly stood up and looked at the situation he was in. He was very upset about being suddenly transferred to another place after entering the dungeon. It was called a dungeon transfer. That dungeon could not be left unless it was completed first. As he stomped his feet with an annoyed expression, Jae Hyun suddenly felt a terrifying aura out of nowhere. He looked back as if something was coming at him. Instantly an aura with killing intent and unbelievably strong horror suffocated Jae Hyun until he couldn't breathe. To forcibly stop the suffocating feeling, Jae Hyun stretched out his hand towards a piece of broken stick. In that position, he forcefully thrust the broken piece of stick into his thigh. Finally, Jae Hyun could breathe again and his vision returned. Jae Hyun's pupils narrowed, surprised at what he was seeing. It was a huge shadow. Jae Hyun slowly straightened up and turned his gaze away. With an expression full of terror, Jae Hyun let out an exclamation of shock. A demonic shadow creature formed like a giant was in front of his eyes. Soon, a shocking name slowly fell from Jae Hyun's lips. That creature was the dungeon's boss, Nightshade. Then a notification popped up repeatedly saying that there was a very significant level difference. Then a warning notification appeared saying that the situation was currently in danger. The Norni system told him to quickly escape from the dungeon. Realizing that Jae Hyun could not defeat him, he tried to grab the warp stone to get out of the dungeon quickly. Unfortunately, when he had grasped the warp stone and was about to break it, Nightshade appeared beside Jae Hyun and hit him in the stomach with incredible strength and speed. At that super fast attack, Jae Hyun's body flew away and crashed into the tree behind him. Blood sprayed out of Jae Hyun's mouth. The warp stone in his hand fell from his hand and bounced away without him realizing it. Almost all of his vitality had disappeared in one attack. He only had 40 HP left. Jae Hyun tried his best to focus his shaky gaze and saw the enemy approaching him. The demonic creature's blazing gaze made Jae Hyun's entire body tremble. In a crisis of despair, the Nightshade finally stood in front of him. Then it slowly raised its large hand and swung hard. Jae Hyun gave up at that moment because he could not move his body, and in the end, Nightshade's attack would hit him and make him die instantly. Jae Hyun closed his eyes and was ready to accept the dungeon boss's attack. But surprisingly, when Jae Hyun opened his eyes, the Nightshade's movement had stopped. Jae Hyun was very confused seeing that phenomenon. After that, he heard an alluring female voice. The woman said that the child was an important guest that she had brought to Helheim personally. Jae Hyun forcefully gathered his remaining strength and turned his head to see where the voice was coming from. There, he saw a woman with half of her body covered smiling with her eyes. Jae Hyun saw that half of the woman's body was so beautiful while the other half was damaged. She smiled at Jae Hyun and said, "So it's you." The strange woman did not expect that Jae Hyun was the adversary who was going to kill him. The woman saw that Jae Hyun was only a beginner, his body was also normal although his magic capacity was quite good. With all that, it was not enough to fight against the easier god. With what Jae Hyun had, the woman asked why would Loki choose an inexperienced boy as an adversary. The woman pierced Jae Hyun's neck with her sharp nails, a thin line of fresh blood flowing. Jae Hyun started to lose consciousness as he lost too much blood while fighting against Nightshade. Even so, he didn't want all of this to end. Jae Hyun wanted to survive this situation and avenge his father at any cost. With a faint smile, the woman brought her face closer to Jae Hyun. The lady liked the look in Jae Hyun's eyes. Continuing her words, the woman said that Jae Hyun was still too weak and told him to get stronger as soon as possible. Because the coming Ragnarok would be faster than expected. The woman took back her nails that pierced Jae Hyun's neck, then she grabbed his neck with a terrifying look. While strangling Jae Hyun's neck, the woman said that if Jae Hyun couldn't do it and make the hell happen again, then the woman would kill him. As Jae Hyun felt such intense pain that he couldn't breathe, the woman removed her hand and spoke with a face showing compassion and said that Jae Hyun was a very important pawn, so the woman gave Jae Hyun a chance to become stronger. The woman wanted Jae Hyun to get stronger than he was now and told him to defeat Nightshade. Upon fulfilling her request, she vowed to bestow upon Jae-hyun a gift of significant value. Yet, as previously mentioned, time was not on Jae-hyun's side. A deadline loomed in 2 months, by which Jae-hyun was tasked with vanquishing Nightshade. Suddenly, a message window materialized, announcing the acquisition of the primary mission titled, Hell's Trial. The status window conveyed that Hell, the sovereign of Helheim, had presented Jae-hyun with a formidable challenge. Gain Hell's recognition by defeating Nightshade within the time limit. Instantly countless black hands appeared from under Jae-hyun's body. At the same time the woman's hazy voice was heard, "Chosen child of the Norni, I shall pray for success in war." Shortly after, Jae-hyun opened his eyes. As his consciousness fully recovered, he realized he was already at the entrance of the dungeon. The wound he got from Nightshade some time ago had disappeared. When Jae-hyun looked back at the quest he got in the dungeon, he realized that the woman he met was Hel, the goddess of death who ruled Helheim, one of the 9 mythological worlds. Jae-hyun remembered Hel's words that she was chosen by Loki as an enemy of the Aesir gods. Everything was still unclear to Jae-hyun. For what reason did he go back in the past, what did adversary mean, and what did he want from him? Amid the confusion, Jae-hyun was sure of one thing, that he had to become stronger. With a slight smile, Jae-hyun realized his weakness. He had to start learning the basic fighting skills of a magician. As Jae-hyun stood up and made up his mind, he reached for his smartphone. When Jae-hyun was about to send a message, he saw a message from Park Sung-jae informing him that tomorrow Guildmaster Yo-sun Jaeon wanted to meet Jae-hyun personally to hear his opinion on the contract. The following day, Jae-hyun accompanied Park Sung-jae to the Yeonhwa Guild Gymnasium. As they descended the stairs, Jae-hyun speculated that the reason behind Yo-sun Jaeon's call might be connected to his recently revealed awakening profile, which indicated a remarkable magic class aptitude of 97%. Out of the blue, a voice he recognized resonated in the vicinity. Turning, Jae-hyun was met with a face he knew all too well. Yo-sun Jaeon, the guildmaster of the Yeonhwa Guild, welcomed him warmly, having anticipated Jae-hyun's arrival. Yo-sun Jaeon inquired if Jae-hyun found the stipulations in the contract to be satisfactory. Jae-hyun acknowledged that the terms of the contract were indeed favorable. However, before committing to the agreement, he had a specific request. Given that it had been less than a month since he transitioned from a warrior to a magician, Jae-hyun asked to receive personal instruction in the realm of magic from Guildmaster Yo-sun Jaeon. It was an advantage for Jae-hyun to be taught magic by one of the few S-rank raider in the world. With many considerations, Yo-sun Jaeon accepted the condition to train Jae-hyun in magic, but before that, the woman wanted to check Jae-hyun's talent. Yo-sun Jaeon snapped his fingers, a blue cube came out between them. It was called Mana Cube, usually used by at least B-rank magician to test Mana's sensitivity. Yo-sun Jaeon wanted to test Jae-hyun's Mana sensitivity. If Jae-hyun failed, it would not affect the negotiation contract. Then Park Sung-jae started pressing buttons on the operation screen and the Mana Cube gate began to appear. With doubts on her mind, Jae-hyun slowly entered the Mana Cube. Yo-sun Jaeon was excited and wondered how long it would take Jae-hyun to get out of the Mana Cube. When that man entered the Mana Cube, it was like entering the ocean. Luckily Jae-hyun had no trouble breathing in that sea of mana. He was focused on finding a way out of there, and there was no reason to waste time. There was one way to get out of the Mana Cube, and that was to find the only door that connected to the outside among all the whirlpools. When Jae-hyun concentrated on finding the exit by sensing the Mana Wave, he felt something different. He turned his head towards the direction the Mana Wave was coming from. There was a Mana Crystal with purple light surrounding it. It was very strong mana, as if it was the core of the Mana Ocean. Outside the Mana Cube, Yo-sun Jaeon and Park Sung-jae, who were having a light conversation, were shocked by the Mana Cube cracking. It was 10 minutes since Jae-hyun entered the Mana Cube. They wondered what exactly happened there. Inside the Mana Cube, Jae-hyun approached the Mana Crystal. The closer he approached it, the stronger the intensity of mana he felt. Jae-hyun felt mana that was stronger than the surrounding from the Mana Crystal, which meant that the crystal was the core that maintains the Mana Cube. Then Jae-hyun grasped the Mana Crystal and crushed it. It was seen that there were cracks in the Mana Cube, and a notification appeared informing that Jae-hyun had successfully obtained the passive skill, Crystal of Mana Operation. Seeing the destroyed Mana Cube, Yo-sun Jaeon and Park Sung-jae were very surprised, because only 7% of magician in the world could destroy the Mana Cube. And all of them took at least 3 hours to do so. For an S-rank magician, it takes about 30 minutes to 1 hour to do it. But Jae-hyun did it in just 10 minutes. Currently the person who holds the record for the fastest time to destroy a Mana Cube is Camilla from the European Union. Camilla is a genius magician who broke the record in 36 minutes. And just now Jae-hyun broke that record with a time difference of 26 minutes. Yo-sun Jaeon approached Jae-hyun and asked how Jae-hyun got out of the Mana Cube. Jae-hyun said that he found some kind of crystal and destroyed it. With his shocked face, Yosun Jian was speechless, because if someone can destroy the crystal, it means that his mana is greater than the mana in the mana cube. Yosun Jian laughed and he promised to make Jae Hyun the strongest magician. Outside Jae Hyun's house, his mother and Kim Yoo-jung were waiting for him because he was late and didn't answer his phone. Then they saw a luxury car pull up. Minute Jae Hyun got out of the luxury car and made Kim Yoo-jung and Jae Hyun's mom surprised. A moment later in Jae Hyun's room, Yoo-jung, who was sitting on the bed, looked at Jae Hyun with an angry expression. The woman asked Jae Hyun why he changed his mind to become a magician, because previously Jae Hyun really wanted to become a warrior. Yoo-jung reminded him that magician couldn't make much money, which was the main reason for Jae Hyun to choose warrior class. Then Jae Hyun recalled Woo Min's words about how warriors were quite slow in handling things and got hurt more often, hence they were less of a choice for clients. Jae Hyun didn't want to talk about it anymore and asked what Yoo-jung was doing at home. Yoo-jung said that her parents were out of town and Jae Hyun's mother allowed her to stay over. Yoo-jung was the only daughter of a reputable family. Kim Yoo-jung's parents collected monster corpses and sold them to various countries. Because monsters appeared in various countries, they often traveled overseas. Jae Hyun asked Yoo-jung to teach him the theory of magic because of his little knowledge. Yoo-jung agreed and asked Jae Hyun to grant one request in exchange for teaching magic theory. At dusk, a man was seen defeating monsters in the dungeon. That person was Jae Hyun's father, Minute Song-oh. A man approached him to invite him to join his guild. The man begged and forced Minute Song-oh to join, but it seemed that Minute Song-oh was very upset and gave a horrible look and told the man with a sassy and disgusting name and greed that knows no bounds is what describes humans. Back at the Yeonghwa Guild Gymnasium, Jae Hyun prepared for his first lesson. Before starting the first lesson, Yosun Jian wanted to see Jae Hyun's battle instincts and reflexes. In other words, they would be doing some sparring. Then Yosun Jian told him for Jae Hyun to attack. Jae Hyun took a stance by placing his left foot forward, and lowering his shoulders as much as possible in order to avoid the attack easily, like the posture used by a warrior in combat. He leaned forward to throw a punch, but it was easily blocked by Yosun Jian. Jae Hyun was very surprised that he could not get a single punch in. Although Yosun Jian was a healer, the S-rank raider was at a different level. Yosun Jian saw that Jae Hyun still couldn't throw away the habits of a warrior and that magician should not run forward carelessly. Sun Jian taught that every magician is a raider who weakens the opponent from a distance before landing the final blow. If magician fights by closing the distance too close to the opponent, then magician will quickly fall given its low defense. After her explanation, Yosun Jian took a stance and prepared to attack and gave an example of how magician should fight. The woman gathered mana, which was concentrated in her index finger. Then a powerful attack was launched, but Jae Hyun managed to avoid it. Jae Hyun immediately activated the lightning chain skill and attacked her. Sun Jian did not move, seeing Jae Hyun's attack that was about to hit him. When Jae Hyun thought her attack was a crushing blow, Yosun Jian was suddenly beside Jae Hyun in an instant. Sun Jian cast magic arrow and attacked Jae Hyun and said that no matter how good the skill is, if it can't hit the target then it's useless. Unexpectedly, Jae Hyun was still able to stand up after receiving Yosun Jian's attack. The woman did reduce her magic power, but she didn't think Jae Hyun could still stand up. Then Yosun Jian cast the magic arrow spell once again, but this time he cast several magic arrow at a time. Not wanting to give up so easily, Jae Hyun used his universal derivation skill to destroy Yosun Jian's magic spell, and of course it surprised her. Suddenly Jae Hyun's lightning chain appeared from underground. Sun Jian swiftly restrained it with protection magic. Sun Jian was taken aback by the rapid development of Jae Hyun's magical abilities, particularly considering it emanated from someone so young and untrained. What astonished him further was Jae Hyun's ability to wield magic without uttering a single spell. Typically, for magicians, the articulation of spells is a fundamental aspect of casting magic. While it was conceivable for a seasoned magician to conjure magic silently, albeit with diminished potency, it was remarkable for Jae Hyun, who was still a novice in the magical arts, to demonstrate such capability. That was what surprised Yosun Jian the most. At this point of the fight, Jae Hyun already didn't have much mana left. He was frustrated that none of his attacks were working. Sun Jian turned around and said that he was a man full of surprises. But before Jae Hyun could react, Sun Jian attacked him and Jae Hyun flipped over and fell. Jae Hyun was still thinking about how he did not notice that last attack. So that was the difference between him and the S-rank raider. Yosun Jian was very impressed by Jae Hyun's fighting style, when the close combat experience he had like a warrior, then the ability to cast spells without spells, as well as the speed of his magic decomposition. After seeing Jae Hyun's fighting style, Yosun Jian said there was one fighting style that suited Jae Hyun and no one else could do it. It is likely that only Jae Hyun can learn it. Then Yosun Jian told Jae Hyun to call him teacher from now on and congratulated him for being his first disciple. After Jae-hyun returned home, Yoo-jung teaches him the basic theory of magic. Through drawings, she taught Jae-hyun about the most important types in magic, which were battle magic, buff magic, and healing magic. The system informed Jae-hyun that his understanding of magic derivatives increased and magic efficiency increased by 5%. Jae-hyun saw that the system always notified him every time he obtained something, as if the system really did not want Jae-hyun to fail. After Jae-hyun explained why he changed his path from warrior to magician, Jae-hyun suddenly found himself in the middle of another dark and airy world and listened to a strange voice and asked if it was true that he chose this path of his own accord. Jae-hyun assured himself that it was just a delusion and decided to just focus on Hell's quest that needed to be completed immediately. Jae-hyun couldn't afford to lose focus, so he thought of something more productive, like a precious pill that could help him break his progress deadlock. At Yeonhwa Guild, Park Sung-jae and Sung Jae-un discussed the things he wanted to teach Jae-hyun. Sung-jae reasoned that many raiders had tried, but none had succeeded so far, but Sung Jae-un reminded Sung-jae that Jae-hyun was very talented, and if any S-level mags were to appear in the future, then it would be him. Sung Jae-un is the only magician in Korea who successfully reached S rank. Even so, as a healer, the effectiveness of his attack magic is weak. But Jae-hyun's appearance with that extraordinary talent, he has the ability to shake the entire world. It was explained that there was an elixir of magic reinforcement. As the name implied, the pill was an item that increased the mana of the awakener who consumed it permanently. It was a pill that was highly craved by magician. And Jae-hyun was making that pill in his house. But it seemed that Jae-hyun failed to make it. If he continued to make the pill, it would waste a lot of money and time. He couldn't ask others how to make it because currently, in November 2020, there was still no one who knew how to make the elixir of magic reinforcement. The reason was that the elixir was created in 5 years. That means only Jae-hyun knows what is needed and the steps to make it. Before Jae-hyun went back in the past, the elixir recipe was freely shared by world-class alchemists. And when he gave the recipe, he said that having the elixir could be a great help for raider around the world. Instead of Jae-hyun continuing to make the elixir, he decided to look for the founder of the elixir, Lee Jae-sang. Lee Jae-sang was now a first-year student at Miller's Academy. Jae-hyun immediately headed to Miller's Academy to meet him in person. When Drasil appeared and right after the monsters came out, there were several people who gained more power quickly, one of which was the Quick Blade Lee Jae-shin. The person Jae-hyun was going to meet at this time was the youngest son of Lee Jae-shin, Lee Jae-sang. After a while, Jae-hyun arrived in Daegu, the district where Miller's Academy was located. Jae-hyun entered the academy building and searched for Lee Jae-sang. Although Lee Jae-sang was in the combat department, he was not that talented. Lee Jae-sang, who didn't like fighting, was very unlikely to use Miller's Academy's facilities. Then Jae-hyun looked for him around the classroom. After walking for a while, Jae-hyun heard and saw several students gathering in one place. After investigating what happened, it turned out that there was a fight. Jae-hyun then entered the classroom where the fight was. When he opened the classroom door, a green-haired student was thrown and bumped into Jae-hyun. Judging from the situation, a man was bullying the green-haired student. Unexpectedly, the man who was bullied was Lee Jae-sang. What an unpredictable luck. The bully pulled Jae-hyun's collar. He was angry because Jae-hyun had interrupted his fight. With the basic theoretical knowledge taught by Yoo-jung, Jae-hyun cast holy arrow magic on the man and it immediately hit his hand and broke it. Because he felt humiliated in public, the man took out his sword and attacked Jae-hyun. With the knowledge gained from Sung Jae-un, Jae-hyun created a protective mana barrier magic to reflect any attacks that came at him. Sure enough, the sword used to attack Jae-hyun was knocked out of the bully's grasp. Jae-hyun immediately grabbed the bully's face and used holy arrow magic right on his face. It threw the bully off and made him fall unconscious. Then Jae-hyun approached the bully and took out a potion and poured it on the man's face. Jae-hyun said that this potion was very effective but didn't know who made it. Jae-hyun took Lee Jae-sang to a place where no one could hear their conversation. Lee Jae-sang thought that Jae-hyun was his father's agent, but Jae-hyun immediately denied it. Jae-hyun said that he didn't know his father. In that case, Lee Jae-sang asked why Jae-hyun was looking for him. Jae-hyun straightforwardly asked Lee Jae-sang for help to make him an elixir, but Lee Jae-sang denied that he didn't know how to make something like an elixir. Jae-hyun managed to persuade him of his exceptional skills as an alchemist. Seizing an empty elixir container, he revealed that the individual who had marketed the potion was none other than Lee Jae-sang. The man was profoundly shocked upon hearing this, unable to fathom how Jae-hyun had come across such confidential details, given that the potion was traded on the black market. Transactions conducted there are characterized by utmost secrecy, encompassing aspects like the item being traded, its pricing, and the identity of the purchaser. Everything happens in the easier system, so user data is safely protected. Because his secret was exposed, Lee Jae-sang begged Jae-hyun to keep it a secret because if his father found out what he did then he would die. Jae-hyun promised not to tell anyone. Initially, Jae-hoon also did not intend to threaten or blackmail Lee Jae-sang. Jae-hoon was just looking for a great alchemist and someone who could make an elixir for him. Lee Jae-sang was touched by Jae-hoon's words about the great alchemist, and Lee Jae-sang was willing to listen to Jae-hoon's request. After arriving at Lee Jae-sang's workroom, the man asked what elixir Jae-hoon wanted to make. Jae-hoon told him his plan to make an elixir of magic reinforcement. An elixir that increases a raider's mana permanently. Suddenly Lee Jae-sang's authority and aura changed. He didn't stutter, plus he guessed most of the elixir ingredients just by hearing the effects. Jae-hoon convinced him to make it. He even told him that he was talented and capable of making it. And even if he failed, it would not be in vain. Lee Jae-sang shed his tears because it was the first time anyone believed in him to this extent. Since childhood, Lee Jae-sang was timid and talentless, unlike his other siblings. He lost his mother when he was young and was left alone. He could not get any recognitions from his father. With such a background, how could Jae-hoon trust him so much? He couldn't stop thinking about it, so Jae-hoon's words touched his deeply. It had been weeks since Hell gave Jae-hoon his quest, and now there were only 10 days left for him to defeat the dungeon boss, Nightshade. He continued to train with Sun Jaeon and gained new skills and experiences that he practiced hard by learning from him. Then Park Sung-jae stopped Jae-hoon sparring with Sun Jaeon. He was astonished to see how the training room made of arc metal could be destroyed like that. Even to scratch it took a lot of strength. If Park Sung-jae hadn't stopped them, the training room would have been destroyed. When Jae-hoon felt that he had improved, he told Sun Jaeon that he wanted to test all the skills he had learned by raiding a dungeon. The next day, Jae-hoon came to Lee Jae-sang's workroom. Lee Jae-sang was already waiting for him with a tired look. Lee Jae-sang immediately gave him the elixir he had requested in a box. Jae-hoon quickly ate the pill, and unexpectedly, Jae-hoon's magic stat increased by 15 points. The effect was beyond Jae-hoon's expectations. If he made it at other alchemists instead of 15 points, they might only be able to make pills that increase magic stat by 5 points. Jae-hoon thanked Lee Jae-sang and left. He was ready, and tomorrow Jae-hoon planned to defeat Nightshade. On the other hand, the ruler of Helheim, Hel, was sitting next to a wolf-like creature that appeared to be his pet. She told her pet that today they seemed to have an interesting guest. With complete Valkyrie set equipment such as Valkyrie's ring, necklace, and earrings gave Jae-hoon the passive skill Mana Extortion. That made all of Jae-hoon's preparations complete. He stood in front of the dungeon gate confidently. After that, Jae-hoon told Park Sung-jae that he was ready to enter the dungeon. Park Sung-jae just nodded as a signal that he understood. Soon Jae-hoon entered the dungeon and entered Helheim. The place hadn't changed at all since he had been there a few weeks ago. But there was one change that Jae-hoon felt. It was that the mana flowing in that place probably belonged to Nightshade. If Jae-hoon managed to defeat the monster, he could meet her again, Hel. There were many things Jae-hoon wanted to ask her about adversary, Loki, and Norni. Jae-hoon recalled the first time Sun Jaeon taught him how the fighting style of a battle mage. The important thing about that technique was that it was a hybrid fighting style that used magic and physical attacks, and no one had mastered it yet. Using magic that was not as powerful as a long-range magician, and physical strength that was not as powerful as a close-range warrior. A technique that is positioned in the middle that does not focus on one thing. That is called Magic Swordsman, which only Jae-hoon can master. With the Magic Swordsman fighting style he learned, Jae-hoon could now easily defeat undead such as Draga, Wraith, and Skeleton Soldier. When Sung-jae stood outside the dungeon, a woman called Yeonju appeared in the car. She hadn't contacted him since they graduated college, but here she was now pretending to come all the way just to see him. She starts snooping around the area and asks him if he manages the dungeon since it's not one of his usual responsibilities. She then pulls out a photo of Sun Jaeon and Jae-hoon. The woman asks Sung-jae why Jae-hoon keeps visiting Yeonju guild. Sung-jae simply tells her that it's none of her business and she leaves. Inside the dungeon, Jae-hoon was seen sitting on the corpses of the undead that he seemed to have defeated. Thanks to a few days of getting used to his new fighting style, it was easier for him to move around. And now he was ready to face Nightshade. Not long after, the dungeon boss appeared before Jae-hoon. The blackish-red aura seemed unchanged since the first time Jae-hoon met. But this time would certainly be different. With a more relaxed facial expression, Jae-hoon said confidently that this time he could definitely defeat the dungeon boss, Nightshade. Accompanied by her shrieks, Nightshade launched an assault on Jae-hoon, skillfully elongating her nails to strike him from afar. But Jae-hoon was able to dodge the attack by jumping into the air. Jae-hoon, who had strengthened his ability, attacked with a new skill he learned, Holy Arrow. Nightshade stepped back after swaying for a moment, but stood up unharmed. Nightshade was angered by that and attacked Jae-hoon relentlessly. But Jae-hoon was not the same person as a few weeks ago. He was able to predict the direction of Nightshade's attacks and dodge them with small steps, head tilts, and light body movements. After Jae-Hyun quickly gathered his mana in his body, he fired a lightning chain at Nightshade. The dungeon boss lightly deflected the attack with his long nails, but Jae-Hyun clenched his hand and continued to control the chain. The lightning chain began to twist around Nightshade. Nightshade screamed and shook his body from the continuous lightning attacks. Jae-Hyun gritted his teeth. He realized that the attack was not enough to defeat him. Then the holy arrow shot from the top and was about to hit Nightshade in the eye. As the attack reached its target, a crack appeared in the demonic creature's inner pupil. After being hit by Jae-Hyun's attack, Nightshade was enraged. The creature emitted a terrifying red aura, then a notification appeared saying that the boss monster, Nightshade, entered Berserk mode. Berserk was a skill that a small number of monsters above C rank possessed and was automatically activated, when their vitality was reduced to less than half. It was a skill that increased strength and dexterity by 1.5 times. Nightshade, who had broken the chain, roared loudly. On the other side, Jae-Hyun received a notification in the ancient rune language. Then Jae-Hyun's body seemed to be enveloped in a purplish-black aura. The notification with the ancient rune language changed and informed that Jae-Hyun received the stigma of death condition. If the stigma is not removed within 10 minutes, the user will be subject to the penalty, sudden death. The condition to remove the stigma was to defeat Nightshade. Of course, Jae-Hyun had never heard of such a condition. Jae-Hyun tried to cancel the stigma with the universal derivation skill. But it was useless. The universal derivation skill could not cancel the effect of the stigma. It crossed Jae-Hyun's mind that there was one person who gave the stigma condition, Hell. Jae-Hyun was very angry with Hell's interference. But Jae-Hyun realized that his protests would be pointless. He could do nothing but defeat Nightshade as soon as possible. Jae-Hyun rushed to Nightshade and planned to attack. But Nightshade was not a stupid creature. He immediately ran away from Jae-Hyun's presence and tried to lure his enemy. Nightshade then stopped and laughed slyly. The demonic creature shouted loudly, louder than before. Jae-Hyun, who was activating the Light of Judgment skill, was cancelled due to Nightshade's roar. Jae-Hyun failed to withstand it. He was hit by the fear debuff effect, which made his body unable to move. Taking advantage of the situation, Nightshade jumped up and swung his heavy fist at Jae-Hyun. Jae-Hyun was thrown far away as a consequence of the attack. Jae-Hyun had to think of another way, because if he used the Light of Judgment skill, Nightshade would harass him again with the crowd control skill, fear, and end up running out of mana and time. Jae-Hyun, who was lost in his own thoughts, realized something as he attacked Nightshade's eyes. There was a possibility that Nightshade's current vision was worse than before. The first thing Jae-Hyun would do was to disable his vision. Jae-Hyun immediately used the skill, Wind Boost, which temporarily increased dexterity. Instead of chasing Nightshade, Jae-Hyun moved to the demonic creature's blind spot. When Nightshade moved his body and turned his head towards where Jae-Hyun was, Jae-Hyun raised his hand and saw golden rays and particles lying vertically above his hand. Soon the Flash Bomb skill was activated. The light explosion blinded and swallowed Nightshade in bright light. In a short time, the lightning chain sounded and immediately wrapped around Nightshade. Jae-Hyun did not waste the opportunity. He was already above Nightshade's head in the blink of an eye and wanted to end it with his final blow. Before Jae-Hyun landed his final blow, the dungeon boss shouted loudly. The shout invited low-level monsters to appear, such as Skeleton Soldier, Wraith, and some groups of Draga that he fought a while ago. But Jae-Hyun was not confused. Instead, he smiled as he saw the monsters rushing toward him. A golden color filled his left eye, and a holy aura immediately flowed out from his entire body. Instantly the sacrifice skill was activated. Since the undead monsters had appeared, sacrifice had turned into an attack skill. The Light of Judgment skill was automatically activated. Light filled with holy aura began to fall from the sky before quickly reaching the ground. Several glorious beams of light gathered into a pillar of light that obliterated the undead. In the long-awaited battle with Nightshade, Jae-Hyun won the battle in the end with only a few seconds left. Then a Norni system notification appeared informing him that the dungeon boss, Nightshade, had been defeated. And Jae-Hyun got the title, the one who overcame the first trial. Now that Jae-Hyun had defeated the dungeon boss, Nightshade, the stigma of death had been cancelled. Jae-Hyun was awarded 3,000 status points, materials from the Nightshade core item, and shadow armor gear. Abruptly, the environment around Jae-Hyun started to fragment gradually. The whole dungeon exhibited fractures akin to a shattered mirror. Subsequently, Jae-Hyun found himself transported to Hell's Temple. Understandably, he was bewildered to find that the dungeon, which had previously been marred by the chaos of battle, had transformed into a temple adorned with crystalline glass and ice formations. As Jae-Hyun was transfixed by what he saw, a wolf-like creature made its presence known with a very strong red aura. When the wolf-like creature was about to attack Jae-Hyun, Hell stopped it by calling his name. The wolf-like creature's name was Gamma. Hell told the wolf to bring Jae-Hyun into the temple. After being escorted by Grandma, Jae-hyun arrived at the center of the temple where Hel was. Jae-hyun shouted to let Hel know that he had come to see her. Hel, who was somehow already standing in front of him. A woman with a body that was half beautiful and half evil, with a charming voice. Hel congratulated Jae-hyun for completing the trial and called him the young man who was destined to become the great enemy. Without further ado, Jae-hyun asked what had been bothering him. What did Hel really want? By giving Jae-hyun the Noni system and testing with a trial. Hel tilted her head and rested her chin on her hand as she grinned. Hel wanted to make Jae-hyun the great enemy. Because from the beginning Jae-hyun was born with that fate. The fate of being the high and mighty easiest great enemy. Someone to kill the top god, Odin. That was what Loki and Hel wanted from Jae-hyun. Hearing the explanation from Hel, Jae-hyun did not understand what the goddess said at all. Hel only replied that Jae-hyun didn't need to understand and didn't ask to understand. Hel knew that Jae-hyun must be upset because Jae-hyun didn't understand why he was being used as a god's pawn. With a serious expression, Hel reminded Jae-hyun that it wasn't just about half-easy gods. While pushing Jae-hyun into the black aura, Hel said that the human world was heading towards annihilation, because Odin wanted everyone to bow under his power. Therefore, Loki and Hel needed Jae-hyun's power to become the great enemy in order to stop Odin's plan. Hel asked Jae-hyun to become stronger. The goddess was looking forward to the day when she would meet Jae-hyun again. After Hel finished with her words, Jae-hyun, who was in a purple-black aura, immediately disappeared from Hel's temple. Jae-hyun opened his eyes that he had come out of the dungeon. He was very annoyed at Hel for not answering his question at all. Then Nornia's notification appeared, telling Jae-hyun that he successfully obtained Hel's gift. The gift from Hel is a passive skill called Hel's Blessing. The skill can nullify the effects of each attack on the user. Inside Hel's temple, Hel seemed to be seriously asking someone why that person was present in his place uninvited. The golden light seemed to be an uninvited person. The golden light made a voice like an old man and apologized for his impolite attitude. The old man asked Hel how it felt to meet the great enemy in person because Hel seemed to like it. Hel replied with a smile and said that Jae-hyun would probably be a better great enemy than she thought. Suspiciously, the goddess asked the old man, "Is that all you wanted? You must have something else to say to me, Mimi." It turned out that the figure behind the golden light was a god called Mimi. A god who has the nickname Giant of Wisdom. Hel was annoyed by Mimi's behavior, which always hid his intentions in the form of light. Hel said that great enemy's law of causality was definitely twisted. Not only that, great enemy's left eye is the eye of Odin, who was sacrificed at Mimi's well. After that explanation, Hel asked Mimi what exactly Loki and Mimi were planning. Mimi apologized for not being able to tell the plan because it was still too soon for Hel to know because it was fate. Hearing Mimi's answer, Goddess Hel smiled slightly that she was used to waiting, but she could not wait without doing something. Because the current great enemy was inexperienced and, according to prophecy, would be facing many obstacles. That's why the great enemy needed guidance that always led to the right path. Even when the great enemy experienced the toughest obstacles, Hel would help him. A week before the admission of Miller's Academy's new students, a woman called Park Hannah, who was a representative of Yeonhwa Guild, was assigned to give a gift to Jae-hyun for entering Miller's Academy soon. They were both at the Raider shopping center. Park Hannah bought a Raider equipment gift for Jae-hyun. They bought some equipment at an expensive price. When Park Hannah wanted to invite Jae-hyun to check and buy armor, Jae-hyun refused, reason that he didn't need it because he already had armor. Jae-hyun's armor was obtained after he defeated Nightshade. The armor was called Shadow Armor, which came from the shadow fragments of Nightshade with the addition of the Conceal attribute. Park Hannah explained that items with Conceal attributes are very difficult to find. Even in Korea, there is only one Raider with Conceal ability, which is Park Hannah's brother, Yeonhwa Guild manager, Park Sung-jae. Hearing that, Jae-hyun was silent and confused because the vibe between the two of them felt different. Suddenly the Noni system appeared saying that it agreed with Jae-hyun. Instantly a green light appeared in front of Jae-hyun, like the one that led Jae-hyun to the treasure gate in the dungeon last time. Immediately Jae-hyun ran to follow the light leading him. Soon Jae-hyun arrived and he saw a metal stone with a golden color covered in stone. The passive skill, Supreme God's Eye, reacted. It could see through misleading illusions and reveal the truth. Then the low-rank skill of the Supreme God's Eye passive skill was successfully unlocked. The skill was called Detection, which when activated could detect the value of unknown items as well as see-through Conceal, and other illusory skills. In another condition, there are two warriors having a duel. The man named On Hyoan won the duel. On Hyoan was one of the potential Raider candidates. Many people said that he would be the future S-rank Raider of Korea. His father congratulated him, but it seemed that Hyoan was not excited to hear it because it was uncomfortable. As Hyoan was taking a shower, he was contemplating his life path. He was fed up with a boring and regimented life where he had no intention of doing anything. It was not the raider life that Hoyan had hoped for. Back to Jae Hyun. The gold-colored metal stone that Jae Hyun saw earlier was equipment called mistletoe that could grow together with the user, and contained unknown magic power. The item was a branch of the mistle tree that created the weapon that killed the son of Odin, Balder. When the item is used, the user can learn the passive skill magic power detection. The passive skill can increase the ability to detect magic power to the highest level as well as increase understanding and observation of the mana flow. At the same raider shopping center as Jae Hyun, Hoyan and his father were looking for equipment. Hoyan told his father not to use a lot of money to buy equipment and better use it for his mother's medical expenses. Hearing Hoyan's words made his father angry because he was a future S-rank raider. Hoyan found himself engulfed in melancholy, burdened by the anticipations placed upon him. He was at a loss, unsure of his current path and questioning if this was truly the kind of raider he aspired to become. In his eyes, this existence bore no distinction from the creatures confined within a zoo. Recalling his younger days during the time of his awakening, he remembered the comforting smile of his mother as she tenderly stroked his head. It was then that Hoyan dreamed of becoming a raider. Hoyan's family was not a wealthy family, so Hoyan was the family's last hope. But that light of hope was just a tool for his father. And now, he's like a machine that only follows his father's orders. As Hoyan was lost in thought, an announcement was broadcast inside the shopping center. The announcement said that there had been a dungeon break and it was rumored that a demon had appeared. Hoyan's father told him to get out of there quickly because he was a genius child who would determine the fate of South Korea in the future, and there was no reason for him to be involved in this incident. This time Hoyan didn't want to listen to his father's words. He ran out to save people because this was his chance to prove himself as a raider. When Hoyan arrived where the monsters were, he was so scared that it made his body stunned, unable to move. When the goblins were about to attack Hoyan, who couldn't move because of fear, Jae Hyun came up by stomping on the goblin and then made Jae Hyun realize that what was in front of him was Hoyan. Who would have thought he would meet the unfortunate genius Hoyan in a place like this? Jae Hyun asked Hoyan for help to help him defeat the goblins. Before Jae Hyun could finish his words, Hoyan told him that there was a goblin behind Jae Hyun. Jae Hyun knew about it and defeated the goblin with one attack using lightning chain. Hoyan, who saw that, was very surprised. Jae Hyun told him to come to his senses and raised his weapon to face the monsters. It was strange for Hoyan, as he heard Jae Hyun's words, the fear that haunted him instantly vanished. Jae Hyun told Hoyan to use the taunt skill because it was a skill that the warrior had. Jae Hyun wanted the goblins not to run away and wanted Hoyan to provoke as many goblins as possible. Without hesitation, Hoyan took out her sword and shield, then activated the active skill, Taunting Roar. The effect of the skill made monsters within a radius of 50 meters become attentive as well as cause magic and physical attacks to decrease by 30%. Jae Hyun was a little surprised when Hoyan activated the skill because Taunting Roar is a higher skill than ordinary taunt. As expected of Hoyan, he had great talent as a warrior. Even so, in the future, before Jae Hyun regressed, Hoyan only became a B-rank raider. No one cared about him because of his weak mentality. His famous name now was quickly destroyed and became the reason why Hoyan was nicknamed Unfortunate Genius. Jae Hyun wondered why something like a mental weakness that could be easily fixed changed on Hoyan so significantly. Jae Hyun recognized Hoyan's potential and planned to make a valuable partner out of him in the future. Cooperating with each other to save lives, Jae Hyun and Hoyan start hunting monsters. When Hoyan provoked the monsters, Jae Hyun killed them with magic. With that kind of attack pattern repeated over and over again, the two of them were eventually able to defeat all the monsters. A moment later, Park Kyung-hoon from the Raider Agency came and asked Jae Hyun and Hoyan if the two of them had defeated all the goblins. The man from the Raider Agency didn't know how to report to his boss. Jae Hyun asked Park Kyung-hoon to say that the Raider Agency was the one who overcame all this because no one would believe that two kids killed all the goblins. But that couldn't be done because such things were not something that the Raider Agency could cover up. The man suggested that if Jae Hyun's reason was not to attract attention, he would make sure to make it not that big of a deal. At the same time, they would both get a reward for killing all the monsters. Since Jae Hyun didn't want his secret revealed, Jae Hyun told the man to give all the rewards to Hoyan. Jae Hyun's reasoning was not to attract attention before Miller's Academy's admission. And it was even more beneficial if Jae Hyun could make Hoyan feel indebted because of this incident. Jae Hyun told Hoyan to accept his gift. Jae Hyun didn't think too much about his reputation as a raider. Jae Hyun had to make sure his father didn't know that he was focusing on magic. For the sake of his mother's safety, Jae Hyun must not attract the attention of others. Jae Hyun required his revenge to be perfect. Jae Hyun would grow stronger beyond his father's expectations and wait until the right time before breaking and slashing his father's neck. On the other hand, Hoyan felt that he had not deserved to receive the gift, but with it, he might be able to pay a little for his mother's treatment. Jae Hyun knew what Hoyan was going through with his family, so he convinced Hoyan to accept the gift for his sake. With Jae Hyun's words, Hoyan agreed. Before Jae Hyun departed, Hoyan implored him to share the name and contact number of the individual who had rescued him. Jae Hyun, turning towards him, advised him to loosen up a bit, highlighting that they were peers in terms of age. Furthermore, given that both were potential enrollees at Miller's Academy, there was a high probability of frequent encounters in the days to come. Thus, Jae Hyun's preparations for gaining admission into Miller's Academy reached a conclusion. During Miller's Academy's admission day, Jae Hyun was seen standing next to Yoo-jung, who was nervous. Of course, there was also on Hoyan. The other students were excited by Hoyan's presence because he was famous for his genius. What caught Jae Hyun's attention was the presence of Suina, a person who will become an S-rank magician in the future. If Jae Hyun makes Suina his companion, it will be more advantageous. Soon someone appeared on stage. He was the head of the academy, Jiu Jae-in. Ever since Jiu Jae-in appeared, Jae Hyun had a face that was not pleasing to the eye. Jae Hyun would not be able to forget the academy head's face, because he was the one who caused Kim Yoo-jung to die. After entering the academy, Kim Yoo-jung quickly became a top 3 student of magician. On this occasion, Jae Hyun would not let Yoo-jung die. Then Jiu Jae-in explained that at the Miller's Academy acceptance ceremony, there will be a special event prepared. There is a game where seniors and new students steal each other's name tags. Suddenly a magic circle with a very large range appeared. Immediately Jae Hyun grabbed Yoo-jung's hand not to be separated because it would be dangerous if that happened. Instantly the new students moved to another world. Jae Hyun, who managed to grab Yoo-jung's hand, managed to move in the same place. Jae Hyun planned to hunt seniors with Kim Yoo-jung. However, a variable suddenly appeared. When Jae Hyun looked back, he saw a woman with black hair and brown eyes. Born as a genius with a magic aptitude score of 92, she was the one who in Jae Hyun's previous life became the one who changed the world's perception of magicians. She also became the second S-rank raider after Yosun Jaeon. That woman was Suina. The new student hunt was held in a demoplane created by magic. In that place, it is possible for someone to do something that might be impossible in the real world, such as setting the flow of time or removing the limitations that exist in the real world. And in that place, about 5% of new students failed every year. That event is a very difficult one and will make people think how weak they are. Jae Hyun could not let his guard down, especially in front of Suina. Then an interface appeared in the air with Jiu Jae-in's face displayed. He explained the rules of the new student hunt event. In the demoplane, all students can only use rank C skills and below. And every time a student steals an enemy's name tag, they will get points. When a senior steals a new student's name tag, they get 10,000 points. On the other hand, when a new student manages to get a senior's name tag, they get 100,000 points. With the points collected, it can be used to use the academy's facilities. Jae Hyun realized something. If he could only use rank C skills and below, it meant that his rank skill, Lightning Chain, was sealed. But Jiu Jae-in didn't mention anything about unique skills. Jiu Jae-in explained that all skills used would be weakened to 10% of their original power, to ensure everyone's safety, so the students don't have to worry about getting hurt. Jiu Jae-in's words were nonsense to Jae Hyun. Not only did he not say anything about unique skills, he also did not say anything about the limitations on one's stats. What Jiu Jae-in wanted was clearly to separate useless students from talented students. After Jiu Jae-in's explanation, Jae Hyun took Yoo-jung to find shelter and rest because they had to survive for 3 days there. In the demoplane, there are several things that can be used to survive, such as Trap, which gives debuff, a fountain that can heal, and Nightmare Forest, which is an ecosystem for finding food and protection. If wanting to survive for 3 days there, finding shelter is the most important because it requires a place to settle down before being able to plan everything. As they were about to leave, Yoo-jung suddenly stopped Jae Hyun and said to invite Suina to the party because it would be better to have one more person on their side. Jae Hyun also thought the same as Yoo-jung, but Suina was not a variable that Jae Hyun could control. Although all he knew was from the news, many things happened where Suina lost her temper and sacrificed the lives of many people. Jae Hyun explained to Yoo-jung not to trust someone easily because what if the person they trusted betrayed them? But in Yoo-jung's eyes, Suina looked like Jae Hyun when he was a little boy. Then Yoo-jung approached Suina to invite her to join the party with him. When Yoo-jung invited her, Suina said to think about it later because there was an enemy approaching. Sure enough, they could hear the sound of something ripping through the air. Along with that sound, an unknown person landed in front of them. They could see a man with a huge body and a girl with blonde hair. They were seniors with the warrior class. Jae Hyun said to deal with the seniors immediately. After all, it was impossible for them to escape. Because Jae Hyun remembered that the female senior had a unique skill that could find targets within a radius of 300 kilometers. The skill was called Search. After a small conversation, the male senior drew his sword and immediately attacked the sword towards Jae-hyun. Although the attack came from his senior, it was a blunt attack for Jae-hyun. He moved his legs and twisted his body and easily avoided it. All of Jae-hyun's continuous dodging movements looked very natural. The attack just kept cutting through the air and did not cut a single hair on Jae-hyun. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun dodged the attack easily, then he held the sword of the senior and said how could the seniors survive with such a weak skill. Then the sword in Jae-hyun's grasp shattered after Jae-hyun clenched his hand. Jae-hyun threatened the senior and gave him 3 seconds to leave his name tag. The senior's face was filled with fear. Jae-hyun didn't delay any longer and threw a punch at his face. The senior was slammed to the ground and immediately lost his strength and slowly began to disappear. Then a notification appeared saying player Shin Junsang was eliminated. Player minute Jae-hyun accumulated a total of 100,000 points. Within the central control room of the academy, Gu-jae exhibited a grimace of considerable dismay, albeit showing a hint of interest towards Jae-hyun. Meanwhile, in the midst of the conflict occurring on the demo plane, Jae-hyun instructed Yoo-jung to gear up for the confrontation with another senior member. The circumstances for the female senior were growing increasingly dire, despite her opponent being a newcomer. Being outnumbered 3-1 posed a significant threat to her safety. She planned to defeat one of the 3 new students and then run away. The blonde senior was charging toward Yoo-jung at full speed. In such a situation, Jae-hyun was very calm and analyzed his senior's movements. It was a wise decision to make a surprise attack and then run away, but it could work if Kim Yoo-jung was an ordinary person. Yoo-jung with a quick reaction immediately created a magic barrier. The senior girl's surprise attack plan failed miserably. When there was a chance that a gap had been made, Jae-hyun wanted to help Yoo-jung. As Jae-hyun prepared to cast magic, there was a spell casting from Suina. A sword with a brilliant light materialized floating in the air. That was Suina's unique skill, Fortune of Alfheim. The swords flew at an incredible speed and immediately tore into the senior's body. After that, Suina asked shyly if her attack was interrupting. Then Suina asked if the offer to invite her to a party was still available, which he gladly accepted. Seeing Suina, who looked different from her past, Jae-hyun changed a little information about her. Now Suina is a quiet, suspicious, and very curious person. With this incident, Jae-hyun's party was formed with 2 members, Kim Yoo-jung and Suina. In the shelter around the Nightmare Forest, there were 2 seniors investigating the place. It seems that they want to avenge their 2 colleagues who died at Jae-hyun's party. While the seniors were discussing, Yoo-jung hid in their blind spot and launched an ambush attack that eliminated one of the seniors. The 5 seniors were angered and chased after Yoo-jung, who had been spotted. Yoo-jung did it according to plan. Earlier at the shelter, Jae-hyun said not to be able to be at the shelter for the next 3 days. They had to find food and needed to get as many points as possible. Therefore, the plan of the 3 of them was to hunt seniors. That was what they were currently doing. Yoo-jung lured them into the paralyzing spore mushroom habitat. Before the admission of Miller's Academy students, Jae-hyun visited Lee Jae-sang's place and asked about the paralyzing spore mushroom during the new student hunt. Jae-sang explained that ash tree sap was the best way to cure the paralyzing effect because there were many trees in Nightmare Forest. The seniors stopped chasing Yoo-jung because a red notification appeared with a warning that they had entered the paralyzing spore mushroom habitat. One of the members suggested retreating because it would be dangerous. Being so consumed with revenge, the party leader told them to keep chasing even if they fainted due to the effects of the mushroom, because it was likely that the new students would also be affected as well. The party leader told one member to keep an eye on the situation in the safe zone and the rest would follow him to chase after Yoo-jung. The seniors rapidly narrowed the gap separating them from Yoo-jung. They found themselves in a clearing amidst the forest, where vibrant green grass carpeted the ground and glittering flower pollen drifted through the air, accompanied by a plethora of paralyzing spore mushrooms dispersed throughout the vicinity. A grin unfurled on Yoo-jung's face as she positioned her staff in the direction of one such paralyzing mushroom, concocting a strategy to detonate it.
So you guys came, the top G, announced that you guys are officially on the road of top G, but you guys are not there yet. If you want to be the top G, then subscribe to this channel and make it to 1K subscribers. In this channel, I will give away gift cards to 10 people when I get to 1K subs. So make it fast. As for the gift for the day, I will give you 1,000 ChatGPT prompts for free if you message me in this email. I will provide you with that immediately.